You know where I go if I could go anywhere? Wherever it is I'm really from. And wherever I had a life before the TVA came along. Maybe I had a jet ski. That's what I'd like to do. Just riding around on my jet ski.
Prune him.
And I'm Noah, and you're listening to A Bite Of,
where we take our current favorite pop culture obsession and enjoy it one nibble at a time.
and this is your podcast on all the Nexus events that are possibly happening just in the Loki show currently.
So scared, so many branches. What's happening? Don't prune me. No!
I mean, we would probably get pruned pretty quickly.
Immediately. Variant right away. Done.
All right, before we get this episode has a lot going on. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Make sure you're following us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at A Bite Of Pod. Check out our Patreon. We got some bonus episodes on there. We put some polls. You guys get to know about the stuff exclusively before everybody else. Another exciting thing is we are on Apple subscriptions. So
Heck yeah.
if you don't want to do Patreon, you can just go on there if you're an Apple user.
Right there, right on your podcast app, right on your phone, on your Apple product.
We just released our Ted Lasso Season 1 kind of review talking about the show because one of the Patreon members suggested us to do that because as a Patreon member, you get to pick something for us to cover. And most of the time we're like, oh, we'll watch an episode and then talk about it. Most of the time we just watch the entire thing because usually every single thing people pick is very good.
Yeah, it seems that we have very similar tastes to our listeners, which is a delightful thing, I think.
And if you are still on Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us that rating and review. Give us those 5 stars. And say something nice, just like Amelia D90, who said, delightful. I absolutely adore these guys. I love their insights and are so adorably funny. This podcast is one of the few that made me laugh out loud in public. That is very high praise, and now I feel like I need to be funny from now on.
Delightful and adorable. Those are two of my favorite adjectives. Thank you, Amelia.
Let's take a look back before we talk about what's currently happening.
Heck yeah. So in Loki episode 3, titled Lamentis, we had Loki and Sylvie jump to the TVA and its golden elevator. They were quickly thwarted by Renslayer, so Loki transports them to Lamentis, a doomed purple moon. The pair need to charge the temp pad to jump somewhere else, but can't find an energy source. They board a train to an arc that might save them, and on the way share a drink, solidify their bisexuality in MCU canon, and get thrown out a window by some guards after Loki parties too hard. Turns out they are too late anyway, as the Ark is destroyed, and they are left stranded in an apocalypse.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Everything's also purple.
I did want to point out, though, Sylvie jumps out on her own volition.
That's very true. Loki gets thrown out, but then she's like, well, I need that temp pad. So she follows him.
All right. Everything from here on out is a spoiler. So spoiler warning, going forward, if you have not watched the 4th episode of Loki, which means we only have 2 episodes left of the show, go and watch it real quick.
Heck yeah. All right. So let's officially take a bite of Loki episode 4, the Nexus Event.
Interesting title. We first heard about the Nexus stuff in WandaVision, so I'm kind of glad the terminology is being shared.
I can't. There's a connection. No,
I do want to say that these WandaVision and Loki are really trying to compete for the most like punching me in the heart shows. So good job, guys.
I feel like Loki and WandaVision are sort of existing literally in their own planes of existence, and like Falcon and Winter Soldier was like very based in reality. So this is it was like, you know, wild fantasy, reality, wild fantasy. So whatever's next, I'm interested in seeing where it goes.
Yeah, who knows
which area to lay in.
So this episode actually starts with how Sylvie came to be an enemy of the TVA. It was Renslayer herself that plucked her from her timeline and took her from her home in Asgard as a child and reset the timeline there. It's a pretty interesting scene. After Sylvie is processed in the TVA and brought before the judge, she swipes Renslayer's tempad and dips out of there. So this whole opening scene, it was really nice to see Asgard again because, it doesn't exist in the timeline we've known for a while.
It was a very quiet Asgard. Sylvie, Little Loki, whatever she's called at the time, was very much by herself in a grand hall, just playing with some toys.
Yeah, she could possibly, but I do think it's weird that there hasn't been anybody else, no Asgardians around. Like, where's the guards protecting this child?
God.
Yeah.
It was, the scene itself, especially when she's being processed, was sort of sad because she's just a child. She's there literally playing with her toys, and Renslayer comes in and says, "You've made crimes against the sacred timeline." Like, what the hell does this little kid know? They're just sitting there, and then she has to sign the documents, but everything she said, she's got to go through that crazy robot scanner. It's awful.
Yeah, the difference between when Sylvie was brought to the TVA and then how we saw Loki brought to the TVA is really different, because when Loki was brought there, it was funny, and it was interesting, it was wonder. And with Sylvie, it's just terrifying because she's a child that literally was just playing with the ship, talking about how the Valkyrie destroyed the dragon. And then she's taken there. And the stack of papers of everything she said was so tiny.
She's just a little one.
She has not lived yet. Leave her alone.
Leave her alone. She's just a little Sylvie. It was terrible. But of course, she still has that Loki mischievous spunk. She does a little bite step steal and says, "Au revoir, lady."
Mm-hmm.
But, how does she not have a temp head charger yet?
Well, she's probably stolen them along the way.
She keeps stealing temp heads her whole life.
She did have a bunch of them. That's how she opened all those doors for all that.
That's true.
But she should have taken one that had a better charge.
Just get a charger.
Yeah. I am very curious about what her Nexus event is. Because, as we know later in the episode, when she asks them about it, they're like, "No, I'm not going to tell you." So it's like, come on, we're almost done. What did she do?
Y'all, don't even talk about Renslayer in this episode. She is something else, and I did not appreciate it from a viewer standpoint. It was great storytelling, but how dare she?
In present day, Renslayer goes to speak. In present day, I say that like it makes sense.
Present TVA day.
Yeah, in present TVA day. Renslayer goes to speak with the timekeepers in their fancy, mysterious chamber and finds Mobius waiting for her. So Mobius he pretty much asks Renslayer, "Hey, let me talk to C20. Like, is there anything I can find out about her? Has she said anything?" She was a little kind of going cuckoo whenever she was brought in here. But Renslayer tells him that C20 is dead, thanks to her mind being badly scrambled by being enchanted by Sylvie, which we know isn't the case.
Right. And especially because she you could tell she's lying, because she's like, "No, as soon as she got here, her decline went at full speed. She completely lost it. She was barely saying words." And he's like, "But all right, I guess I'll take your word for it."
Right. Yeah. And it's pretty clear in this episode, there's a big switch with Renslayer. Like, leading up to this point, she hasn't really had a lot of screen time.
Yeah.
Every time she has, it's kind of just like Mobius coming in here and she's like, "Okay, just, find your Loki," or like, "Talk to your Loki," whatever. And this one, it's very much, you can tell she's for sure hiding something.
Yeah.
And by the end of this, I think Mobius can smell a lie.
Yeah.
But he's probably just crushing on her a little too hard.
Blinded by Love? Is that what you're saying?
It's a Jack White song. It's really good, by the way.
I feel like the timekeepers are corporate TVA. She's management, and Mobius is like middle management, assistant manager. And so he's just going by what she's saying, but he's like, I don't know, corporate, but something's going on between corporate and management, and I can't trust it.
Yeah, the more and more, if he's been doing this for hundreds of years, and at this moment now, things are weird, like he's not able to talk to variants, which is literally in his job description, something's weird.
Yeah.
No. So we pick up with Sylvie and Loki staring at a planetary collision on Lamentis 1. With their final avenues of escape exhausted, they have nothing left to do but simply wait for it. And this was a pretty cool, I guess, epilogue, if you will, of the last episode, where we get a little more from Sylvie. So Loki gave a lot in the last episode, but Sylvie gives a little bit here. And I'm not sure if it's because of their impending doom or they finally realized everything. But Sylvie ends up telling Loki about her abduction and how that created Nexus events everywhere she went after she stole the Tempad. And eventually she had to grow up hiding at the ends of 1,000 worlds as a baby god, which is super sad.
Yeah.
She keeps thinking it's because she's not supposed to exist. She ends up coming to this conclusion that, what makes a Loki is they are destined to lose. But I did like how Loki had a rebuttal with that and was like, it's the fact that we survived despite that.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely true, because every single movie Loki has been in, he has died, or we thought he has died. So.
Lokis have tenacity, okay? They always come back.
They do. I mean, he is a god, so it kind of makes sense.
Sure.
But come on.
But I think that in her life, all she's done has been defeated, or she's had to survive on her own for who knows how long.
Yeah.
I mean, I know she's aged, but she's also been jumping through, like she said, thousands of apocalypse. I don't think that's the plural of apocalypse. Apocalypses?
Apocalypse with Loki. I don't know. Yeah.
So for her whole life, she's been by herself. So and she's felt like, I've lost. I've always been losing right off the bat as a child. I was meant to be wrong.
Which I know Loki can admit. I mean, he relates to that.
Yeah.
Because he loses all the time.
Right. Even Sacred Timeline Loki is always been told he's a loser.
He ends up dying.
And an outcast. Yeah. Yeah, I guess he kind of knows that.
He does compliment her quite a bit. And I'm just going to say it was incredibly weird hearing him give someone such like sincere praise.
Yeah.
And she like kind of, she likes it a little bit, and she takes his arm. And this act of two Lokis falling in love, which is still weird. Like, I don't want to say that because we don't know if they're falling in love. Mm-hmm. But if they are, can I just say it just feels a little like incestuous? I'm not sure it works.
I mean, like, right, you figure incestual things are like siblings. So what if it's you?
That's like I'll listen to self-care, like help stuff, but like that is like you went to another level of self-care.
Is it self-pleasure?
I mean, gross. No, don't think about that.
I don't know. It's the thing. It's funny, right? It feels like a very gray area. It's like, no, it's weird, but it's also just themselves, but it's not really themselves because they're completely different. But would we be saying the same thing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the only thing that to me that feels like weird about it, and I'm not saying that they're going to be romantic. It just seems like they're getting very close enough to create an Nexus event, but it's almost like twins. You know what I mean? Like, of course they're literally the same person.
Yeah.
They're not from the same mother, so.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think about it. I think we could look at it from a couple different directions. That is definitely one of them. It could also be a thing of self-acceptance and realizing that they're finally not alone. I mean, it's a complete change of character because when Loki first enters the scene with her sitting on the rock, he says, "I'm sorry," which is such a rare thing for Loki. It's almost like in this moment, they've both finally put down all of their defenses.
Right.
And coming to terms with their death. And so it's a bit of self-acceptance and self-love, and maybe not acting on self-love, but more spiritual, mental, emotional.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Loki in defeated positions before, even with his brother or without his brother, and he does tend to be a little more truthful when he knows that he's like
kind of
really
back into a corner.
Right, when he's really lost, or sometimes he's a venomous snake and he, bites back. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I keep having to give a little more benefit of the doubt with the character, because it's like this feels like Ragnarok Loki almost, where it's like, no, this is 2012 Loki that just tried to take over the world / brought an alien invasion to New York. So maybe all these things he's going through is the same thing that he went through leading up to Ragnarok, so also he's never had himself to deal with. So
right. I mean, it might be that Loki's destiny is always to find self-acceptance and be selfless. Whether he's on the sacred timeline or is a variant. No matter what it is, that's kind of his trajectory.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's wily. I don't know.
He's mischievous.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big question with the series is you can choose to be good.
Right.
And, Mobius does say it to him, even though he'll say one time you're only destined to make other people shine or bring them to their purpose or, whatever. But I think the whole point is like free will and all of that. Like you have a choice because nobody's predestined. Like, nobody can tell you what to do. If that's the case, then that's really not living and that's not life.
And that's sort of how variants happen in a way.
But you need chaos. Like free will is chaos. So, and he is chaos. So as Loki and Sylvie hold tightly to each other's hands as the world disintegrates around them, 2 portals open up just in time. Because that Nexus event was a big enough spike where Mobius and B-15 were like, got him.
This is how powerful they are. Holding hands and saying nice things creates one of the most extreme branches in an apocalypse. Which is like never happening.
I mean, they must be so narcissistic that loving yourself that openly creates that big of a spike.
I mean, Haley Steinfeld, I love myself. Gonna love myself and I don't need anybody else. But there's 2 of them, so that creates power.
So good news, Sylvie and Loki are saved. Bad news, they're back in TVA custody. Loki says one of the Lokiest things in the show so far, where because him and Sylvie are getting escorted separately, Sylvie has clearly more, bodyguards around her. Loki has like 2 and Mobius. And he's like, I should have equal amount of security, just like Sylvie does, which I loved it.
I mean, Sylvie's been running for eons. Of course she gets more guards, Loki.
Yeah, also she can enchant people. And
True.
Did you see her jump off the wall and kick people and all that? No.
Such good fighting.
So before Mobius puts Loki in the time cell, he tries to tell him that the TVA is a lie. Doesn't work out. He's a liar. Also, their friendship has just been broken. So I think Mobius is a little hurt personally. So the time cell is a torture. It's like torture by time loop, which sounds awful. I could absolutely not do this. Specifically having to endure a memory of Lady Sif. Hello, Jamie Alexander. She's back. It's really nice to see her in MCU again, even just making cameos. Because her last movie appearance was in 2013's Thor: The Dark World. She did also show up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in 2015, but that's been a long time since then. So it's really nice to see her back in the MCU as this character. Because personally, we need Lady Sif. She's an amazing character. I'm so happy. She did post on Instagram that she's here to stay.
Ooh.
So I'm happy. Hopefully,
All right.
In Love and Thunder.
They just took her from the Love and Thunder set. They just flew her in real quick for this cameo and they flew her back.
Yeah. During this scene, so he's in Asgard, and I did think it was not sad, but it was kind of cute when he turns around when Lady Sif first comes out, and he's like, "Hi, Sif."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh,
I'm back on Asgard."
He's just happy to see somebody that he knows. It's so sad, but she's not happy to see him. She comes out, "You conniving, craven, pathetic worm, you did this," as she's holding a chunk of her hair that Loki cut off. And she says, "I hope you know you deserve to be alone and always will be." That's really sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. And of course, this myth of Loki cutting Sif's hair actually does come from Norse mythology. And we did see it in the Trials of Loki, the comic we spoke about in our first episode of this season. So it's really cool to sort of see this legend go from an actual Norse god myth to the comic, now to the screen.
Yeah, it is funny that I like when they pull stuff like that randomly.
Yeah.
And it just adds that extra layer of the Marvel references and the, pointing at the screen and being like, I know what that is. When everybody's like, what are you talking about?
What's happening?
It's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
So Sif then knees him in the groin and punches him in the face. Rinse and repeat. That's this whole torture that he has to go through. The scene does eventually serve its purpose, as Loki eventually apologized to Sif and admits he's a narcissist who is scared of being alone. Sif doesn't hit him this time, but still manages to verbally decimate him by confirming his fears, whispering, "You are alone and you always will be."
And so this, to me, this sort of omission of him saying who he is and what he's scared of relates back to the time on Lamentis when they had that moment. And I think that's what it truly is that, I mean, maybe they will kiss. I have no idea. And everybody will be like, ew. But I think that what it really was the two of them sitting there going, I'm scared of being alone, but look, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And that's been a large part of their driving force as motivation, as characters, is that they've always been on the outskirts of whatever society they've been in. They've always been the outcast. So now, wait a minute. Even though I've always felt that way, there's someone else that feels that, and I'm not alone.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it did take two Lokis that felt that way to create that Nexus event, or to really, I don't know, make them grow as a person spiritually and whatever. But, you got to think too, it's like, Thor did love him. Like, they fought and stuff, but, of course, Thor's the golden child, so he doesn't really feel like that a lot of the time. But Thor did love him, and I know Loki felt that way.
Yeah.
Frigga loved him. I mean, which is clear and evident, especially in the last episode, the way he talked about him. So I think sometimes maybe Loki forgets that, or he puts himself in those situations. Like, he's like, I'm not Thor. I'm not at this point. I was adopted, so therefore I have to be this way.
Yeah.
And he does struggle with that identity and, well, my book says that I'm supposed to be evil. That's what I'll always be. So I'll be evil.
Yeah.
And I don't think he knows that he has a choice. Like, he always has to, consciously be like, I have a choice. I could be good if I wanted to, or you could just be normal.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? Is that you can be told millions of times, you're the best, you're the greatest, we love you, you're part of Asgard, but it isn't until he believes it that it'll feel true.
Right.
So yes, Thor loves him, but he's always felt less than Thor. And Odin loved him, but Odin also treated him badly. So,
well, Odin's a big giant freaking prick.
Well,
so.
and he's also the king.
Yeah.
So if the king's looking down on you and reminding you that you're an orphan of the frost giants, well, of course you're going to feel like crap all the time. And that's sort of in your formative years what happens, and he was never able to shake that until this moment of his impending doom with himself.
So during this whole time loop scene, Mobius tries to get Renslayer to let him talk to Sylvie, which she also denies. So she's like, you're not going to be talking to nobody because you're going to find out stuff you're not supposed to.
You need to mind your P's and Q's. You just go to your little cubicle, look at your jet ski magazine, and stay out of it.
He runs into Hunter B-15 and mentions how the TVA has interrogated Titans, Kree, and vampires. Ooh. So I think this is a direct reference to Blade, because we know that there's a Blade movie coming. Yay. Where have they been hiding? I mean, they've been just I guess literally in the shadows. I don't know.
Listen, they're in a multiverse of madness, okay? You don't know where they are.
Don't start.
They're everywhere. They're with Mephisto, I think.
Mobius removes Loki from the time loop, and he tries to get Loki to explain the Nexus event. Loki lies about using Sylvie, how she came to him on Asgard a long time ago. Mobius tells him that Sylvie's been pruned.
Uh-oh.
Which you could clearly see Loki is visibly upset.
Mm-hmm.
And Mobius tricked the trickster. She wasn't really pruned, and he was just really playing the game that Loki was just playing to him. Mobius tells him how incredibly narcissistic he is to have fallen for himself. And I think this is interesting. I think that this conversation between Loki and Mobius here is almost like what the fans are going to think, or like, us as viewers. It's like he's just automatically assuming that he's romantically in love with Sylvie. Right. And, Loki kind of says a few times, he's like, it's not like that. Mm-hmm. It's not like that. And I don't see Loki really falling head over heels for somebody, even if it is himself. And we have had the director, the creator of the show, say that their relationship isn't necessarily romantic. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out.
I do like here, Mobius says he's an incredibly seismic narcissist.
Yeah.
Earth-shaking.
Oh, yeah.
Earth-shattering. But I do like this scene because you do see the connection that Sylvie and Loki have created together.
Yeah. Because
he is worried about her. He's willing to put himself out for her and say, no, blame it on me, leave her alone. So it is interesting that in this time together, they've been able to understand each other. And even if he is an incredible seismic narcissist, he's talking about himself, Sylvie. So they've been able to see each other. And of course, he is in love with himself. So why wouldn't he be in love with Sylvie?
She's very adamant about not being called Loki. And I know that the TVA, I mean, they do call her a Loki or a variant.
Mm-hmm.
Have they called her a Loki variant? Or, like, I know Mobius, the only thing that really connected them was Mobius was saying, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
We're chasing you, a variant or whatever. So there's a scene that we keep seeing for the show with Loki at the Asgardian throne,
Mm-hmm.
or, maybe it's a variant or an alternate timeline, whatever. I don't, like, since it's weird vibes we got from Sylvie and Loki, I do feel weird saying this, but what if she's like his daughter
Mm-hmm.
and that was never supposed to happen?
Whoa.
And that's why she was pruned, so I don't know. Because that would technically, I mean, she would technically be a part of him,
right.
which would make her a variant regardless. I don't know. I think that's like a really wild theory. I'm just going to like put that like in a little note and put it in my pocket and hope
I am
nobody
down
heard
with
this.
I am so down with it.
But yeah, I don't know. Especially since the creator was like, it's not necessarily romantic.
Mhm.
I just want to like make sure I'm wary about that.
I mean, I think that would be a really great take on it. I also think that we've never seen Renslayer say to Sylvie, Loki Laufeyson, like she did in the first episode. So you're right. Sylvie has never truly been called Loki Laufeyson, like Loki was. So maybe there is some.
Yeah, because the last name, it like changes for the feminine version, but in her, like the file that you see, it does say Sylvie, like the one that's been posted.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say Loki. So I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I'm far reaching here. I feel like Mr. Fantastic.
I mean, look, there's so many questions. Who is Sylvie? What is the Nexus event that she was going to create? When did she get hair dye? When did she get a haircut? What happened to her horn? Where did she get the horns? I don't know.
Every Loki comes with those horns.
But when they took her as a child, she did not have the horns. Can they just make them appear?
I don't know.
Magical horns? I mean, I would like magical horns. Where are the horns now? So many questions.
You're real obsessed with these horns.
I want to know more of Sylvie's story, basically.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened from that little girl.
I mean, I think
through
that's what
time.
we're going to get.
I hope
these
so.
Last two episodes. So Loki does try again to tell Mobius how they're all variants, but he's lied a little too much. So Mobius is like, no, I'm not going to really believe you. But you see a little bit that he's like, this is interesting that this is being said again. So Mobius puts him back in the time cell, still not fully believing him. Mobius goes to share a drink with Renslayer to celebrate, finally apprehending the Lokis.
Mm-hmm.
During this conversation, we really see how manipulating Renslayer has been, and it's much more prevalent in this episode. She uses Mobius' feelings towards her to sidestep questioning
Mm-hmm.
a lot, and that it was something I was just like, okay, really don't like you now, because he likes you. You have no feelings for him because you're loved with the sacred timeline and the timekeepers, whatever.
Well, she's married.
Right. She probably already has. And so she uses that to keep sidestepping the questions about C20 and Sylvie and all of that. And her comments about friendships like ours is worth fighting for, it makes it like, why does she keep talking about their friendship? Like, it seems like they might have known each other prior to the TVA. Like, she knows that, he doesn't know that, or maybe, you know what I mean?
I think at the base of it, she definitely knows that the way to manipulating Mobius is through their personal ties. Because even in that sort of secretive conversation they have outside of the golden elevator earlier in the episode, she says, like, she is kind of grasping at straws, and she says, well, I'm worried about you. I'm trying to protect you.
Right.
You know, and so she brings it back to like, it's me doing this for you. If they're going to come for us, and I have to take the fall for you. And she's doing that same thing here, where she's like, but our friendship, it means so much. Stop doing this. Why are you asking so many questions? Those Lokis have really gotten to you. I've always been here. So she's trying, it's like by talking about how close they are, she's creating distance.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's
don't
all
look
fake.
too deep into this.
She's not giving him anything. She's not really saying anything. It's just like, oh, you're asking a question about something you're not supposed to know.
Mm-hmm.
I like you. We're friends. Trust me.
Right. I recently read a graphic novel called Passport it's a true story about a girl who was living all over the world and she didn't know what her parents did. And it turns out that they were CIA. They were spies. And so a tactic is It's like if somebody ever asks you what your parents do, you don't answer the question, you ask it back to them.
Huh.
So you completely sidestep the question. And like Renslayer's sort of using that here. Like,
But it's so apparent. It's such a tell because it's like, you can't answer my question with the question. That's weird.
but then I think the person who initially asked the question is so thrown off. They're like, oh,
that
well,
you can just run away.
exactly. You push him down and you run.
So Mobius does use this meeting in here to steal her temp pad because I think there's just been a little too much. We know that Mobius is no, dull now. He's a pretty bright light bulb here.
Oh,
He can outwit Loki. He can lie. He knows when Loki's lying. So I think he knows when Renslayer's being a little too iffy. She's a little sus here. So he steals her temp pad. But I mean, how many times is Renslayer's temp pad going to be stolen?
okay.
How does she go from a hunter, what was it? Like, I think her thing was like
something.
823.
Yeah.
And she gets her temp pad stolen by a little girl, a variant that disappears for years. And she makes her all the way up to judge.
Mm-hmm.
I think the promotion scale in the TV is also a little wonky.
Little wink. Hey, what do you mean? Wink, wink.
She knows a little too
Promote
much.
me. I think, first of all, you just described Mobius being the perfect contestant on Survivor. You were like, he will outwit, outplay, outlast anyone there.
Yeah.
He's super smart and he's good at the social game. But I do think that Renslayer just has a way of winning people over. And I think the thing with Renslayer is that she thinks everybody's always going to abide by the rules, right? Even when she brings Sylvie in, she's like, oh, this little child will walk up to the judge with me and will plead her case and then we'll get pruned. She thinks that everybody's going to follow that timeline, but she's never ready to accept or intercept them when they break off. Like, that's how Sylvie was able to step on her, bite her, and get her temp pad.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like, Renslayer says throughout this entire series, and definitely in this one, like, do you know how hard it is to keep the sacred timeline in order? There has to be this order that the timekeeper said this, we have to do this, we need to do it by the T. So it's very, like, I mean, she's a little obsessed with, like, order. Everything has to happen the way it's supposed to happen.
Even the coaster under the drink.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Even though she's let it, I mean, if my table, no,
The rings.
can't.
That
Mm-mm.
look, that is probably an ancient wooden table. Maybe it's mahogany.
That they probably stole from a TVA agent.
Oh my
when
God, they
stole-
raided their home. It's probably Mobius's from his
I
life
do
in
want to say,
Florida.
too, that Mobius took a moment to examine the pen that Renslayer had again, the Franklin D. Roosevelt pen that we saw last time. There wasn't necessarily a close-up in this, but you can clearly see him looking at it like it looks familiar to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely is out of place for that office. It's like, why that pen? Why does she keep using that pen? So maybe has to do with past life. Probably has to. I'm pretty sure we'll find out next episode.
Yeah, maybe even it's her past life.
Mhm.
This is a little memento that she holds close to
But
her.
why would it seem familiar to him?
Because it's out of place.
Hmm.
Look, they have standard Bics at the TVA.
What if, like, she was vice principal and he was principal of a high school? Like that?
Franklin Delano Roosevelt High School
Who knows? We'll see.
with the best jet ski program in all of the nation.
Oh, yeah. Maybe they're jet ski instructors at Franklin D. Roosevelt
He
High
might
School.
just love a jet ski. Maybe that was his aspiration. I'm going to retire and I'm going to always ride a jet ski. And then he never got to do that because he got stolen.
Maybe. I mean, parts of people are obviously always shining through, so
Oh.
they don't always erase everything. So Mobius ends up looking through the TemPad and watches a recording of a very lucid C20
Mhm.
saying that she remembers her past life prior to the TVA. The recording is ended by Renslayer, who clearly doesn't want the truth to get out. And it's enough evidence to convince Mobius that Loki might be right.
Mhm.
And that Loki and Sylvie are the key to bringing it all down. If this is the case, like, why didn't Renslayer kill Sylvie sooner? Like, why? I know show purposes, but there's just so many opportunities where it's like, why are you still keeping him around? Like, just kill him. Why did she, like, entertain the idea of Mobius trying to reform this Loki or use this Loki to find Sylvie? You know, it's interesting. Like,
I think maybe Sylvie means more to the TVA than we think.
maybe.
And so they need to bring her in and do something with her.
Yeah, maybe Sylvie's a lot more powerful than maybe Sylvie even knows. That's why she doesn't know she created a Nexus event or was taken.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. So just as Mobius has his faith in the TVA shaken, so does Hunter B-15. She goes to Sylvie. She takes Sylvie back to Rock's cart, the hurricane apocalypse planet, and demands the truth.
Mm-hmm.
The last time Sylvie was in her brain, she saw a memory that didn't involve the TVA, and she lets Sylvie into her mind again to see her life before that. And through her tears, B-15 realizes that she was happy.
Yeah.
So the farce is blown. She knows that what Sylvie's showing her is true because, again,
Right.
parts of them are always there, and when you see it, you know it.
Absolutely. You could feel how real it is. And I love that when she's in the hall kind of processing what's going on, what did I see? She sees that poster and it says, "Did you get them all? Verify through deletion."
That doesn't make sense, but fine.
But it's like, I think it could be taken as a variant, or she's seeing it as all of their memories.
Well, because in the beginning of the episode, she's very adamant about C20. Is she okay? Like, she really wanted to find C20 and she wanted to avenge her, but I mean, maybe she knew that she was pruned or whatever, and she's like, shit, this happens to us too. Like, we're no different than the variants.
Right, exactly. And by seeing her own memories, she realizes that, wait, maybe they didn't delete them all. Maybe there are still things that happened, things that I didn't realize.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she goes into Sylvie.
Yeah.
Show me what you showed me. And I think, like, I would have loved to have seen
What she saw?
what she saw.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of feeling two ways about this. I would have loved to have seen it, to experience that, so I could also have that emotion of her being so happy, but it's almost so intimate that she can only see it herself.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too, especially the first time I saw it. I loved how you saw there was a little switch in Sylvie, just like Loki, where when B-15 first came in the room, she's like, and then she like pretty much just like took her there, and she's like, oh, okay. And when she enchants her and she sees that it means so much to B-15, Sylvie feels that. She has empathy for that.
Absolutely.
And watching it a second time, I was like, it was just such a nice scene to see Hunter B-15's reaction to seeing how happy she was. It's like, okay. Like, it was more effective than I thought watching it a second time.
Yeah.
Where it's like, she was probably just like maybe with the family or something. Like, it sucks. But I mean, I do hope we see more of her going forward because, I mean, Wumney Masaku is an amazing actress, and I feel like we just need a little more scenes with her, especially since she's like, fuck the TVA now.
Yeah. Yeah. She's got the power. She's ready to take them down, because it must be an interesting thing of when you spend so much time defending these people that you then learn were actually going against you.
Oh, yeah.
And stole your life from you.
It's a tale as old as time. Deceived.
Beauty and the Beast.
So Mobius goes to Loki and frees him from his nut-cracking torture. Just as the two besties make amends, they are stopped by Renslayer, who is all too aware that Mobius swiped her temp pad. Part of me feels like she knew a little, like, earlier than, I don't know. It just seemed a little weird. Like, I'm like, you found that out real quickly. And also, they all look the same. Like, how do you know?
Guys, this is why, I don't know. This is why you put a password on your phone. This is why you get a case that looks different. Come on, TVA.
They're also all Nintendo DSs.
They're beautiful gold. Just a gorgeous lacquered gold. I love them so much, but come on.
So this confrontation leads Mobius to tell Renslayer that he would love to be in a place where he's actually from. Maybe on a jet ski. So she has him pruned.
Oof.
Anybody else audibly gasp or yell at the TV? Yes.
Oh, yeah. I let out a real New York, oh my God.
You really did. Which scared me because it was very abrupt and loud. And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. Yeah. As you all know, we watch these at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So I was very audible for that early in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, when they pruned Mobius, I was like, okay, there's something up with this pruning. There's no way.
See, I didn't think that at all. I was like,
really?
He's dead. Owen Wilson is gone forever.
That's it. That's a wrap.
It's done.
So Loki again lost another person that he actually cared about. I can't, like, oh my God, give him a break. Like, he can be an asshole. He can lie, but like, he's lost everything. Sylvie is like the last thing that he cares about. And also like sometimes children and people and stuff like that. But he really cares about Sylvie. He just made amends with Mobius after Mobius called him a bad friend when he first brought him back, which you saw that Loki didn't like that he said that. And then when they were like, oh, as friends, he's like, yay, we're friends. And they're skipping through that time door. And then he gets pruned.
Yeah. I mean,
sad.
I feel like Loki's life is very much the myth of the guy pushing the big rock up the mountain. And it's like whenever he's making some headway, whenever he's having a relationship that's going to flourish, it all falls back down again.
Wow.
And that's just what he does his whole life. No wonder the dude is jaded.
Oh, green, jade.
Mm.
So Loki and Sylvie are taken before the Timekeepers. In the golden elevator, Sylvie asks Renslayer why she was plucked from her timeline. Renslayer, of course, claims she doesn't remember, but the evil grin says otherwise. Which is, I mean, I do have to say that Gugu, the actor that plays Renslayer, is really good. Like, we all felt like there was something off, but we're like, maybe she just doesn't know. We were kind of, I mean, it could still be that way, but the way she portrayed this character leading up to this point was really good because this episode, I'm like, you're a villain. Like, you know stuff and you're still acting accordingly to that as a shitty person.
Right. 100%.
So
she's almost like toying with her prey.
Right.
At this point, she's not going to give them anything. She's going to lead them places. She's very evil.
Well, this whole Sylvie thing must be super personal to her. Because when she was a hunter, she escaped and made her look like a fool in front of the judge. So
definitely her greatest failure.
Yeah.
100%. We do see also, again, this very raw moment where Sylvie whispers to Loki, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, that was cute.
Oof.
Yeah. That's sweet.
Very sweet.
Yeah. They care about each other.
Mm-hmm.
I do. The way she doesn't say Sylvie. She doesn't say anybody's name. She says variant. Or she'll say C20, B15. She's very like, it's like disconnected. Like she refuses when Mobius called Sylvie to her. She's like, who are you talking about? He's like, the variant. She's like, oh, I get it now.
Well, just talking about the hunters, I was trying to figure out, like, I don't think they have names.
No. I
think they strip you of everything.
They
literally become a number to them.
Yeah, maybe they have names to each other. You know what I mean? Like maybe nicknames or, the hunters within themselves. Because it is weird. Like, I guess maybe you don't get a name until you're out of hunterdom.
Right, exactly.
And I'm curious if the numbers are like ranks. The more you go up towards A, then that's the promotional step.
Right.
Or is it backwards? I don't know.
Yeah, well, she was an A, right?
Right.
Renslayer was an A, and then she became Renslayer. I was wondering that too. Or maybe it's just the timeline you're from and the number variant you are, or something like that. I don't know.
Who knows?
We need the TVA employee handbook.
Malarkey.
Indeed. It's all terrible, no matter what it is.
All right, so they all stand before the Timekeepers and all their misty blue glory with neon.
Yep.
Who really do look like a bunch of weird space lizards.
Okay, listen, you guys. The diction on these guys needs work.
Who was that third one to the right that was like I could not understand for the life of me what he said.
Oh my god, no. There was a green guy who was like bloop, 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 bloop. And then there was hissing guy who was like the only one you can understand was Rockface. It's like Rockface, Sea Guy, and Snake Guy. And I could barely understand any of them.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And they weren't saying like normal words. They were saying like crazy like SAT words.
Well, no, they were saying, I mean, as we know, they're androids or whatever, but like it just seemed robotic, or like the responses weren't as like lively as you would think a live person would sound like, So right off the bat, you're like, there's something off about this.
Yeah, I think that Loki is really just an allegory for the Wizard of Oz. And they are...
He's Dorothy.
He's Dorothy. Okay, he's got to find his way home. Who needs a heart, who needs a brain, whose brain has been deleted of all memories.
Everybody. The whole TVA. Yeah, and it all just takes place in the Emerald City. B-15 does appear. She releases Sylvie and Loki from their time collars and tosses Sylvie her sword. Sylvie and Loki fight back to back in a scene that is a little reminiscent of the throne room battle in The Last Jedi. Not going to complain. Both of these were very great. There's tons of stuff out there comparing both of them because it's true. It's almost exactly that scene, and I'm here for it. Love it.
It's all Disney, so
I mean, true.
they can borrow from their properties.
Renslayer and Sylvie face off as Loki takes on the rest of the guards. This is a really big... It's actually, I want to say, like, one of the first big action sequences in the show. And I do think it's very interesting that these Disney Plus shows from these Marvel movies that we watch where they have action after action, they just kind of focused on stories for the TV shows. You know what I mean? So like there is some action throughout it, but it's not like this type of action where it's like, you know, movie budget, movie quality action scenes.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool that WandaVision didn't really have any action scenes until the very end of it. Loki, we're not really seeing any action scenes. We saw a few, but this is the first big one as we're leading up to the finale.
Yeah, it feels like the movies are the war and these shows are the battles that lead to the war. So there's political things that are going on, emotional things, small fights, but you're not going to have your big blockbuster moments like you would in the movie because the movies are what are going to highlight huge moments in the sacred timeline, whereas these are just like smaller blips.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It is also like a 6-hour movie, if you will. So it's like, I guess it makes sense that like the big fights happen towards the end.
6 straight hours of fight choreo. They'd be so tired.
Sylvie eventually knocks Renslayer out and then beheads one of the timekeepers.
Whoops.
The remaining timekeepers creepily laugh after that. And another shocking twist in this episode, it turns out that timekeepers were just mindless androids, much to both of their frustration. Loki and Sylvie still don't know who created the TVA.
But so here's something weird, right? So she, just as they're about to chop their heads off, the main rock guy, I believe, says, I think it's that one. You're a child of the timekeepers too, Sylvie. We can talk. What does that mean?
They're robots. I don't know.
But no, there's someone behind them controlling it. And
of course. Yeah.
It kind of leads to our theory of Sylvie as part of something bigger at the TVA.
Yeah, there definitely has to be a reason for her still being around. Because, I mean, if whoever's pulling these strings, Kang the Conqueror, I know that's being thrown around a lot, but I mean, he does have a lot to do with Renslayer in the comics and the TVA. Just makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows at this point? It could be anybody's guess. But why? I mean, it really brings to question, okay, so if the timekeepers aren't real, whoever's pulling the strings obviously just wants things the way they want it. And why is Renslayer going along with it? Like, is she like comfortable with power? So she wants to stay in that position no matter what? Does she believe in whatever they're selling? Is she in love with whoever is in charge? You know, so I mean, I think finding out what Renslayer's motivations are and why she's doing it is going to be a big part of the show as well.
It's also very confusing because it's like, how did the people who are behind the androids get so much power? How are they this huge, I don't know, astrological being that can see this sacred timeline of and prune things? And like, how do they get this much power to be these overall all-seeing beings?
Yeah, I mean, the sacred timeline's bullshit. I mean, at this point, I don't believe that there's like a singular timeline that should be there. There's obviously multiple timelines that are going on that maybe whoever this person is just doesn't give a shit about the other ones. He just wants to make sure this one.
So it gets to their
happening.
ultimate end.
Exactly.
Of maybe them taking over the universe or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big motivations between this is, I mean, who knows?
We better find out.
But it does make sense on why Loki and Sylvie and all the TVA people, well, not TVA people, but the variants that come through have to go through that like android detector.
Oh.
Because these guys are androids. Maybe androids can see androids.
Or maybe they're afraid of other androids taking over.
Right. But it's weird, right? Like, why seeing if you're a robot? Why would that matter? Because you don't have a soul, but why would you need a soul?
Oh, I don't know. I got to watch Disney Soul now.
So before Loki can confess what seems like his love or embrace Sylvie, Renslayer actually stabs in the back. Admittingly, this is very fitting for Loki, and prunes him.
Yeah.
So another shocking twist. This episode did not disappoint. Tom Hiddleston did say 4 and 5 were his favorites, and I can see why. In her rage, Sylvie gets the upper hand and demands Renslayer tell her everything.
Mm-hmm.
Please, I hope in this next episode, we get to know everything.
The whole next episode is going to be a retrospective of the TVA.
I hope not. No, don't we're us to the end.
It's going to be Miss Minutes telling us everything that goes on in the TVA.
I mean, we haven't seen Miss Minutes.
I know, where is she?
Forever. I mean, Tara Strong, come on. I would love to see more of her. She's probably the villain behind all this.
Well, we said that. We definitely said it's her.
Imagine Tara Strong as the villain. It's the next
Who could she play?
Phase 4 villain.
Oh my God.
No, it's just Miss Minutes.
It's Miss Minutes. It's always Miss Minutes.
Yeah, so
hi, y'all. I'm going to kill you.
I do feel like this next episode is going to put the story maybe on pause, or at least a big chunk of it. Because if you thought that was a shocking end for Tom Hiddleston's reign as Loki again, the end credits prove that he has more lives than a freaking cat. So he wakes up thinking he's in hell, which is kind of sad that he automatically thinks that he's in hell and not in Valhalla. You're worthy, Loki. You're worthy to go to Valhalla. Just want to put that out there.
That's beautiful. Put that in a card. You send it to him.
With 4 Lokis before him.
Ah!
So we got classic Loki, played by the wonderful Richard E. Grant,
Mhm.
and in a kind of tragic yet iconic costume.
Yeah.
The costume was not great, but it was good because it's that's why they didn't do that costume.
Yeah.
Guys, it looks like that.
It feels very much in WandaVision, that Halloween episode when they
Yes.
were wearing those, and we're like, oh,
Exactly.
I get it.
Exactly that. Now, this Loki is credited in the credits as Boastful Loki by Game of Thrones, D'Ambria O'Perry? Am I saying that name right? Let me know. Comment below. And Kid Loki, so excited, by Jack Vale, holding what looks like to be an alligator Loki,
Come on, alligator Loki.
or whom I want to call Gator Loki.
Loki dial. Look later.
No! I'm so excited for Kid Loki. But, I mean, okay, Young Avengers, guys. I mean, you're just constantly adding these characters. When's it going to happen? We got possibly Patriot from Falcon and Winter Soldier. We got Billy and Tommy in WandaVision. We have Kate Bishop coming up.
Yep.
We have Kamala Khan. I mean, come on.
It's gotta happen.
Kid Loki now? You kidding me?
Let's do it. I mean, they have to get unpruned at some point, right?
Maybe. I'm not one to say.
Well, I don't know. We need Kid Loki to be back into the main timeline to get.
Or whatever timeline he's from.
That's true.
I mean, I am curious. But also, if you notice in the background of the shot to the right, that's Avengers Tower.
But it does not look good.
No, I mean, it looks like the Avengers lost.
Little worse for wear.
So the question, what makes Loki a Loki, gets a little more complicated because it looks like there's a lot more Lokis. So right now in the MCU, what we have seen is there's 6 Lokis in the MCU.
Look, it's going to be like a Sailor Moon moment where they all take hands, and their love for each other, which we saw the power of on Lamentis, with 6 of them, unstoppable.
Oh my God, I just realized, what does RuPaul say at the end of every episode?
Can't love yourself. How the hell can you love somebody else?
That's
why.
why.
Amen.
Exactly. That Loki loving himself. He can't love everybody else unless he loves himself.
They're going to come together. It's going to be a gorgeous moment. They're going to blow a hole through the sacred timeline, and Loki shall be king. Which one? We don't know.
Well, he's definitely going to be president because I think in this next episode, we're getting that scene that we've seen a lot, which makes me think that all the people around him are Lokis.
Loki and Loki and Loki. Loki, I couldn't have done this
He's
without
president
you,
of the
Loki.
Lokis. Thank you, Loki. Thank you. Thank you.
Loki.
I mean, he's really going to love himself.
Oh, hugging, kissing on the cheek. Adorable.
But that leaves it open for where does Mobius go? If we don't see all the characters that Owen Wilson has played throughout the years in his Prune-verse, then come on.
The first line of the next episode is going to be, wow.
No, they already said that you don't say that line in the show.
Look, we got to hold out. They've tried to trick us before. We could do it. Ralph Boner's going to be there.
No, stop. I'm tired of getting boned.
Oh, my. All right. So there's so many questions going forward, but one question that we don't have is how is this going to end? Well, of course, there's a special segment.
Oh, you're talking about just this episode?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let us gear up for another OMTG.
Oh, no, not my favorite.
All right.
You have two more.
I know. I don't think I'm going to land on one. I think the last one's just going to be my own voice, and then everybody's going to be disappointed. I've just run out of ideas.
Comment below what he should do.
Comment below, you guys. Give me other funny voices to do. All right. So meet Monkey, sometimes known as Monkey King, but very often just Monkey.
Oh, I thought you meant like meat monkey. I was like, what?
Meet Monkey. No. Meet. Shake.
I got
Monkey's
it now.
hand.
I got it.
Got it.
Sorry.
Introduce yourself to Monkey.
I'm literally the only one confused on this podcast right now. And usually.
Yeah, my segment always confuses you.
The Eiffel Tower has 3 legs. Still
The
on
Eiffel
that.
Tower has 3 legs. It's a conspiracy. Paris is underground. So this god hails from China, where he is known as a clever trickster. He can shapeshift into 72 different forms and jump great distances. Yes, he's a very powerful monkey. These talents tended to get him into trouble, so he was banished to the forest where he lived with other monkeys who praised him for these abilities, which kind of sounds like Loki being the president of Lokis.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
So after partying too hard with his subjects, he was kidnapped and taken to the underworld, as you do.
That banana party was too much.
Woo! Banana liquor, 99 bananas. Uh-oh.
Whoa.
Yeah, things got crazy. Never one to shy away from a mischievous trick, Monkey found a book containing the names of all mortal beings and the length of their lives. Wanting immortality, he crossed his name out. Of course, this didn't work, and the gods banished him, again, to guard the heavenly garden where the peaches of immortality grew.
Oh, well, there you go.
Listen,
I mean,
if you don't want him to have immortality, I don't know if I would put him in charge of the immortality peaches.
Gods are stupid.
Apparently
We know this.
But of course, there was another huge party, but guess who wasn't invited? Monkey.
Meat monkey?
Meat Monkey.
That's what I'm calling him from now on.
No.
Just saying.
He's Monkey King.
Okay, fine. Meat Monkey King.
So what did he do? He ate all the peaches.
All of them?
He ate all the peaches in retaliation.
Wait, does just one give you immortality?
I don't know, but he had a stomachache for sure. So for a third time, he was banished. And this time, that's right, thrice banishments.
He was like progressively banished towards actually being banished. Like he wasn't actually banished from anything.
This one is very banished.
Oh, okay.
He's imprisoned inside a magic mountain for 500 years.
Wow.
And in that time, he finally repents. So once he's finally free, he was sent on a journey to collect Buddha's writings due to his cunning and fighting ability. When the team returned, Monkey was finally granted immortality. So Monkey shows that if you never give up, you can achieve greatness and say, OMG.
Lots of peaches.
So many peaches. There's a song, right? Peaches for me. Wasn't that a song? Guys, comment below if you know the Peaches
I
song.
have no idea.
Yeah, there's a Peaches song.
I think there's a Broods song called Peaches.
Oh, yeah.
Like everything's peaches.
Everybody, comment below your favorite Peach songs.
Let us know what your favorite peach
What's
song
your favorite
is.
Peach song?
All right. You know, I thought this episode was going to be a lot longer, but I guess, you know, we can nail it on the head sometimes.
Look.
No tangents for us.
No tangerines, peaches for us.
All right. Till next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to A Bite Of, artwork and editing by our own Noah. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at A Bite Of Pod and on Facebook at A Bite Of. If you have questions, recommendations, or just want to say hi, you can email us at abiteofpod@gmail.com. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Please be sure to rate and review to spread the word. Hope you join us next time on A Bite Of. Bye.